As we move on, our next prestigious speaker, Dr. Kiran Ambatipudi sir, is going to solve all our doubts regarding funding and grants. Dr. Kiran sir is a PhD in Biological Sciences, Macquarie University, Sydney, Australia. He did his master's in Applied Genetics, University of Birmingham, UK. He is also a bachelor in Veterinary Science, Orissa, Bhubaneswar, India. He is currently working as an professor, Department of Biotechnology, IIT Roorkee, India. He has worked as a scientist for the Vaccine Production Program Laboratory, National Institutes of Health, USA. He has also worked as a senior bioanalysis scientist, as a research fellow, Dental and Craniofacial Institute, National Institutes of Health, Bethesda, USA. He has also worked as a postdoctoral research associate, University of Rochester, USA. His laboratory focuses on an application of mass spectrometry based proteomics to characterize the role of milk proteins and lipids in bovine mastitis. Sir has some incredible achievements, just to name a few. Sir has 2 patents, numerous grants and publications to his credit. He has authorized several books, and this list just goes on. We are truly honored to have you with us today, sir. Without further ado, I'll invite Dr. Kiran sir to kindly take over.
Can you hear me?
Yes, sir, you're audible.
All right. So first of all, a big thank you to Anita for the opportunity to speak today. So, first and foremost, a big thank you and congratulations to all the P-Value team. I saw the list of speakers. It's fantastic. The wide array of topics that were discussed early on, and hopefully I can take it forward. So as the previous speaker pointed out, you have to publish. Whatever you have done in the lab, you need to publish. But before you publish, you need to do work, and to do work, you need consumables to do some kind of experiments. It's just not about you have data gathering. Even for data gathering, and you need volunteers, and usually you pay the volunteers a symbolic amount to come in and give the samples, or open them out. And if you're a dentist, open them out, for example, or any kind of experiments. And you cannot afford to put money in from your pocket. And sometimes we all do initially, but then for how long and for how much? There's always a limit as to how much you can put in. And the second thing, as the previous speaker pointed out, there are always article publishing charges these days. Pretty much every publication house, regardless, you want to publish in Nature, $3,000, $4,000. It's just the standard fees for publishing, even though it is papers these days. Back in the day, it used to be hard copies, not anymore. But then still, you have all the money, you've done the experiment, but then that's one aspect. The second aspect is to pay the article processing fees. And there's another thing that you also have to factor in is you want to download the paper with the beautiful color pictures. You need to pay more, not just read online, but you want to read it offline, because not everyone can have the time to read online. Suppose you want to download and you want a color picture. Now then, and extra money has to be factored in. So now looking at these different aspects, I'm going to talk about the opportunities that exist in India right now, and the second aspect of my talk would be on what are the fundamental basics that you have to keep in mind when you are writing a grant. Now, writing a grant is slightly, if not more, different than writing a paper. Now, it has different components, more than what you would see in a paper, like introduction, abstract, method, results, and discussion. But then you have to be much more. The much more different aspects you have to keep in mind when you go about writing a grant. So I'm going to talk about two different aspects. So it is not the all and be all kind of things, and just the basics you can build on it by writing more and more grants. But one thing I'll probably point out is you need to be very thick-skinned in terms of rejections. Just like publications, it's not easy to get money in this day and age. With such a big squeeze on release of money, and a lot of different aspects are going on in the country. So not every aspect or every part or every discipline of science gets funded equally. Like for example, last year COVID, there were a lot of grants that came out for COVID related research, vaccines and all that. So because of the money siphoned to one aspect of the science, the other aspects could be, I'm not saying they were, but it could have less. The pot is, and the pot may have less money for funding. So depending on what stage of your career you are in. And India, unlike other countries in America or England or any other country, European countries, majority of the funding in India for researchers comes from the government. Unless you're working for something completely funded by the industry. So and for that you need to have a project that is very relevant to the industry. So now, so the majority of the talk here would focus on the funding from the different branches of the government. So as I pointed out, as majority of the funding comes from the government. And who are those funders? It is Department of Biotechnology, Department of Science and Technology, Science and Engineering Research Board, ICMR, Indian Council of Medical Research. You have your DRDO Defense Research Organization, and you have your MHRD, Ministry of Human Resource and Development. So there are many different branches of the government that give the funding. So, and majority of the grants are for 3 years, and there are very few that are 5 years. I'm going to talk about that in a second, which are the 5-year ones and which are the 3-year ones. So if you look at it, there's only a very handful that are 5 years. So if you look by and large, it'll be for 3 years. And usually they don't get renewed. You have to rewrite the grant again. Suppose you got a grant today, and now you have 3 years to do the work and publish and patent and what have you. And then it's not like an extrapolation of your grant. You need to rewrite again with a different set of questions or objectives to get funding for 3 more years. It's very unlikely that you will get an extension, at least in India. And one of the things that a lot of people ask is preliminary work. Is it important? Yes, it is. There are a couple of reasons I can think of the top of my head. One is it actually demonstrates that you have the ability to do it. You have the technical knowledge and the ability to do it. And second thing, it's you just can't wave your hands in thin air and say hey, I want to do this. Because you need a certain level of foundation to show the researchers or the reviewers that yes, you have generated some kind of preliminary data, the hypothesis where you want to build on that. It just is a foundation of a building. So it's just like that. So you need to have certain amount of preliminary data. And usually you have more than one investigator on it. And sometimes just for the symbolically, people have few co-investigators on the grant. But trust me, it doesn't help like that. Usually the PIs and the co-PIs usually should have complementary skills. You want to do, for example, you have 4 aims, and you want to do 2 aims, and the other researcher, your co-investigator, wants to do another couple of aims. That's how you complement each other, rather than hey, he or she is my friend, I want to put them on the grant, or I may not have any controversy later on. No, that does not help, because if both the researchers are having identical or similar expertise or technical knowledge, you cannot propose more than what you know. And there is no reason for having two investigators if you both have the same technical know-how. So it doesn't help anybody, and that actually one of the points of rejections, or the reviewers come back and say like, hey, go back and add more, or a different reviewer, take off your co-investigator because you both have similar skills. So that's not ideal. And the last one is like, you have to utilize the funds. That's very, very important, because now they give you a part. Now, for example, the start date is no matter when you start, usually you give a utilization certificate by the end of March. That is March 31st is the end of the year for everybody. We all file taxes. Now, similarly, we are accountable to the government as to how much money we have spent. You have given me X dollars, and how much did I spend? And at the end of the year, first year, again, you have to submit a utilization certificate. So to show that, yes, you have in fact utilized all the money that was given to you, and you need more money for your second year. So usually they release yearly. They don't give you the money, the whole money at once. They give you money for 1 year at a time. So suppose, let me give an example. If you've gotten the funding in January, you have to give the first utilization certificate in March, saying like, hey, I have used certain amount of money by March 31st. And by December 31st, which is the last day, for example, if you're grant, because if you got the funding on the 1st of January, so December 31st of that year is your last day of funding. And then you have to give another utilization certificate to show that you have actually $0 left. Or zero money left to do more experiments. So you need more money, because you do not utilize the money, they will deduct the money from your next year allocation, because you were not, you couldn't utilize the money that was given to you early on. So you kind of lose both ways. For example, like, they've given you 10 rupees and you only were able to spend 5 rupees. So the 5 rupees has to be returned to the government. And the next year money will be less than only 5 rupees, because you did not demonstrate that you were able to spend the all 10 rupees that was given to you in the first year. So you kind of lose both ways, the first year as well as the second year. So it's very, very important that you use the money judiciously and for the reasons you specify in the grant. So who are the people who fund? For example, the Department of Biotechnology, which is again a branch of the Ministry of Science and Technology, DST. So it is under the broad umbrella of Department of Science and Technology, we have Department of Biotechnology. And again, the first grant that is for 5 years is the DBT Wellcome Trust, the big prestigious Wellcome Trust funding. So it is usually for 5 years, and in every grant, in every field of life, whether it's a publication or a grant, there are always certain rules and regulations you have to adhere to. For example, in this case of DBT, you can only apply for the early career post 1 to 4 years of a PhD, and similarly for intermediate and the senior positions, and it is very, very competitive, very, very competitive, and you get a lot of money for this. Now you get about big 5 crores, 8 crores like that money, and you need to utilize that funds, and you have a lot of liberty. You can hire a lot of manpower. You can actually buy a lot of equipments, a lot of consumables you can buy. You can hire a lot of hands to help you do your work. You can hire a lot of PhDs, a lot of research assistants, and postdoctoral fellows to do your work. So you have a lot of liberty with DBT Wellcome Trust. It is highly, highly competitive and usually comes out every year. I believe it is August of every year is the deadline. I'm not too sure, but I think it is August of every year when you have to submit the applications. And it involves multiple steps. It's not just one step. Now you have to jump through many hoops. Initially, you submit a preliminary interest, a letter of interest, and then once they think that you have the background, the qualification, the expertise, and now there are some basic questions. Now, if the reviewers think that you're good enough or your answers are good enough, and then they let you ask to submit the main proposal. And then you submit the proposal, then you go for an interview. It usually happens in ISC, Indian Institute of Science. So and then you get the money. So it is very, very competitive. And the next one is Ramalinga, Swami, or Ramanujan Fellowship. This is particularly for people who want to come back to India. This is more for overseas. For example, Ramalinga Swami is for 5 years, same as Ramanujan. But then Ramalinga Swami is the upper limit. The age bracket is like if you're 45 or less. And Ramanujan is for 40 and less. So it is a re-entry fellowship. You get certain amount of money and HRA for your house and everything, and then you get a grant money. But the catch with this is you need to find a host institute. That's very, very important. Now, for example, I want to come back to India. I'll approach IIT and say like, hey, I have Ramalinga Fellowship or Ramanujan Fellowship, and would you host me? So the department usually hosts a fellow, but the catch is it's only for 5 years. So you need to think about long term. Now, what after 5 years? No, you're just a scientist. That is, they are helping the scientists return the reverse brain drain. But then, what after 5 years? For example, you are 30. You want to return to India. Yes, you are working till 35. Remember, you have to negotiate with the institute, or maybe after you come back, you need to think, hey, what should I do after 5 years? Will I get absorbed in the same institute as a faculty member or assistant professor, or I need to find another position elsewhere? So let's say you're 30 years of age, or 25. So 25 plus 5, you have 30. So you have another 5 years to look for a faculty position in other institutes. Usually, no, it's not a something set in stone, but it's an unspoken thing where usually 35 years is where they start to not look beyond people above 35 years of age. It is not something set in stone, but this is something that people look at, because younger people are more productive, more energetic, and they kind of work like a long period of time. So that is why. So if you're 30 years of age, you get to 35, and you hope that you get absorbed in the institute itself where you are, whichever is your host institute, and you don't get absorbed, then you start looking for position elsewhere. So you have your race. It's a race against time where you're already 35 and you start looking for positions, and not many people kind of entertain applications for the entry level position. So so it is important that you keep that age in the mind before when you apply for this kind of fellowship to return or to get a position elsewhere. And the other one is I think in the last 3 years there's a big Biocare grant. This is more for a development of a product. It's a biotechnology ignition grant. It's also in short form, it's Biocare. So this is more for the development of product. So you write a proposal. It's under DBT. You go and present, and and this funding is up to 50 lakhs. 50 lakhs. So and it has to be done within 18 months. It has to be done within 18 months. So it's bang, bang, bang. There's no time for any kind of lag. There's no time for lag. The day you get the money, and you have to start working 24/7. And usually they have a progress report that you need to submit after every 3 months. So they don't release the all 50 lakhs in one go. They release the money every 3 months, I believe. So every 3 months. So you have to be very, very careful. You don't publish, or it's not published. You don't make sufficient progress in 3 months, then the next 3 months money may not come through. And so again, so whatever time and money you have invested, it's a waste of everybody's resources, time, energy, and money. And the next one is the most prestigious, people who are 35 and less. For men and women, it is for 40 years of age, the Hargobind Khurana, the Young Biotechnology Award, IYBA. So it is very, very prestigious. again, it is again, you write a grant, you go and present. It is very, very competitive, and they allocate money for 3 years. They allocate money for 3 years. So it is something similar, like prestigious, like the DBT Bioscience Award, which is, again, you write a grant, you get the award. The award usually entails a cash amount, X amount of money, and then you have your grant money. So that X amount of money is your personal money that you get, which you can use it, or you can use it towards your research. It's up to you. You have the freedom. It is just similar to the Bhatnagar Award, Swami Bhatnagar Award, which is the 45 is the upper limit for that. So again, that is very, very prestigious. And similarly, if you're less than 35 and less, you have this one. If you're a male, if you're a female, you have an extra 5 years. Time to apply for this Young Biotechnology Award. And the last one is the Biocare Award. This is particularly to the women scientists who have had a break in their careers, like whether it is a pregnancy break, or it is kind of some kind of unhappy or circumstances where you had to take a break, for whatever reasons it may be. And this is something that is that helps women scientists to come back into the scientific field again. This is to promote. This is an excellent thing started by the government, where the women are being are encouraged to write grants, and they help them come into back into the scientific field. Whatever it is, whether it is a forced or unforced break. I can think of a lot of because for birth of a kid is one big aspect where females take a break, 6 months break or a year break to raise a kid, and then you want to come back. So because the time has moved on, but then the science has moved on, the time has moved on, and you need money to catch up. So to play catch up and also get up to speed and do well in science, they give you this award. It has different. Again, you want to hire someone, you can have a assistant, or you have money for equipment and for consumable as well. Now let's come to Department of Science and Technology, and the Swarna Jayanti Fellowship. Again, it is for 5 years, and you can see here it also has an extra 25,000 per month for 5 years. So it's not only about you getting X amount of dollars for your research, but also you have that extra money for yourself. That kind of helps. So and we have your Science and Engineering Research Board, which is, again, you have your early career research grants. Again, this is actually an award. Early Career Research Award, and I've been a recipient of that Early Career Research Award. Then you have your core research grants. These are the extramural research grants. They usually come out every year in March 8th or 9th. I believe last year it was 9th, and this year, again, this was on the 17th of March is the deadline. So it takes about a year. By December or January, you'll get to hear what's the outcome of the funding. So again, you have high risk, high reward grant. These are, as the name says, you have a great idea, but it is very, very risky, but if it is successful, now you can hit the sky. So it is that kind of reward. If you think you can get out of it, then and the sky is the limit for funding. It has again from DST. You can look up on the website. It is very, very rewarding if you have something, a path-breaking idea that you think needs sort of money. And if you succeed, you'll get something substantial. And more recently, Ministry of Human Resource Development, the MHRD, has started something called as Imprint, impacting research, innovation, and technology. And this kind of research is more for translational aspect. It's not like what kind of products you're trying to develop and how you can use it for the community or the humanity for the benefit of the mankind. And more recently, I think it's been only a year for something called a Scheme for Transformational and Advanced Research in Sciences. In short, it's called a STARS. It is started by MHRD, and it is coordinated by Indian Institute of Science. It is. So what happens is usually in India we have a lot of universities, a lot of premier institutes. So when it comes to research, usually, everyone should be given an equal opportunity to get funding, because a lot of good scientists are there in university, and a lot of good scientists are there in premier institute. So to make everyone accessible to money, the STARS was formed. And then but then the only thing is like, no, your university or your institute has to be in a rank above a certain level. And then for that, you need to go and find on the STARS Institute if your university actually merits or can actually, or the faculty members can actually write a grant for funding through STARS. So not everybody can write, but if it is above a certain value, I don't know how they do the calculation, do the math, but then if your university is above that level, then you can certainly write funding to the through STARS. So, so again, this is the Indian ICMR, Indian Council for Medical Research, and then you have your INSA and NASI Young Scientist grants that you have for National Science Academies. And again, this is for like less than 40 years of age. And then you have your international, like Indo-US and Technology Forum grants for money. And also, apart from all this, you have this call for proposal, like I just mentioned when I started, like for COVID-19 last year, there were a lot of multiple proposals in different aspects, vaccine, different aspects, epidemiological studies, vaccine studies. A lot of money was, a lot of call for proposals were advertised for people to write. So it is not just about waiting for the deadline. For example, DST. DST is usually every year. DBT is usually around the year. So you can apply to DBT anytime you want. There's no restriction. Whereas for DST and ICMR, usually you have to wait for the deadline. Now, usually they come up with the advertisement and say like, hey, March 9th, usually it is March 9th or March 17th, depending on whatever it is, you have to apply before on or before that deadline. Whereas you, again, apart from that, you also have multiple calls for proposals which you can apply, and there is no restrictions to that. Big example is COVID-19. Apart from the grants that Indian government has, there are also international schemes, like wherein the Department of Science and Technology works with the science and or whatever the biotechnology department or whatever the department is in a counterpart country to give funding. For example, you have your Indo-US, which is again the National Institutes of Health from the US side, and then you have the DBT or the DST from Indian side. Similarly, you have Indo-Japan, Indo-Brazil, Indo-Germany. There are lots of Indo-Australia. Lot of funding is available, but it usually comes out only once a year, and they have about they give you about a month or month and a half to write the proposal and submit it. So the Indian people, the Indian scientists get money from the DBT, whereas for example, if the Americans are there involved in writing the collaborative grant, they get the money from the National Institutes of Health. So you work separately, but still you're collaborating on a project to maximize the research output. Similarly, you have your EMBO grants, European Molecular Biology Organization, and grants and awards. And you also can, EMBO is also a journal. It's a highly double-digit impact factor journal. It's very, very difficult to get in. They also have funding to organize seminars, webinars like this. You can actually apply and get money to organize such kind of funding, because usually this is webinar, but then usually when you have offline, you want people to come in from different parts of the world. You bear their travel expenses, and then EMBO is one such organization that can actually help you give money. And there are also a lot of other agencies. Now, one example is the Cancer Research Institute in New York and the Hematological Society. And again, they usually once a year, and they give you huge amount of money. Huge. It's like an R1. They give about $1 million. No, probably more than that. Cancer research like $2.5 million. And convert that into rupees. It is huge. It's probably about 15 crores of money they give you for 5 years. So it's about 3 crores every year to spend money. It is huge amount of money. And when you have such huge amount of money, the competition is would be similar. It's very, very competitive. It's not like, as a previous speaker said, like, there's no such thing as free lunch. Absolutely nothing. You never get a free ride. Trust me, never get a free ride. You have to put in your blood, soul, and everything into writing grants. It is very, very competitive, because everyone wants to do science. Everyone is eyeing for the small amount of money. When I say small, it is huge, but compared to the research community, we always have limited resources every year. No, we don't have unlimited resources. That is what I meant by saying small amount of money. We have limited resources, and when we have such kind of pandemic, then it even gets lesser and lesser. Apart from funding, you have Fulbright fellowships, Humboldt, very, very prestigious. You have Rhodes fellowships too, Rhodes Scholar, Fulbright, Humboldt, and then you have, probably you all must be aware about Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation. Usually it comes out in April, and then they give you about 20 days time. And the malaria thing, was funded by the AIDS, for example, was funded by Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation. So it is again, like any other grant, it is extremely competitive. And then once you jump through the hoop, you will get. It is worth putting in all the effort. If you have a bright idea where you think you can get enough money to make a difference, mankind, by getting some outstanding results from the money that you've used. Now, up until this point, it is just the what are the different sources of funding. Now we'll get into the details, like the nuts and bolts, or the nitty-gritties of writing a grant. Again, a proposal is broadly divided into three types, like a basic, where it is more fundamental research. Translational is where you have a basic preliminary idea which you want to develop for a clinical study. Translational aspect, you take the idea from the basic and you think you can use it for clinical studies, like for human studies. You have done that in mice, or you think you can use it for clinical studies by the clinical doctors, for the physicians. So something, three different categories. So you need to click. When you're applying the grant, you need to make sure you select the appropriate option, whether you want to apply through basic or translational or clinical aspect. It's not like one size fits all. It's not like that. So you have to be very, very careful when you apply and when you click the right button, because it will go to those reviewers who are doing basic research. If you are a translational researcher, if you're a clinical researcher, you don't want your proposal to go to a clinical researcher, which is primarily a basic research, or vice versa. So it's because the reviewers pool is very, very small. We do not have an unlimited pool of researchers. So you want to help them understand your project. You don't want it to make it sound or look very complicated, because I may not have the expertise in basic or clinical or translational. I may have expertise only in a certain aspect. So I would be able to give my 2 cents only maybe in translational, for example. I may not be able to give in basic. So if I get a basic research, I may not be the best person to review your grant. So maybe I may not be able to give you good comments, and then there's a body that looks at it and say like, hey, not good, let's reject it. So that is why it's very important that you pick the right option. Again, proposals can be a single institute or multiple institute. You can always do research by yourself with a co-investigator, primary investigator from one institute, and then you can have multiple institute as well, like across IIT Roorkee versus ISC, or IIT Roorkee versus IIT Bombay. So again, multiple institute can also take part in doing research. So what drives the show? It is the idea, the basic idea. What is the idea that drives you forward? And what is the result that you get will make a difference to the mankind or to the nation. So it is something that you have to understand. It's like you just can't do science because you just want to do it. Because at the end of the day, we are all accountable to the taxpayers, because it is taxpayers' money. So we may as well do science that is beneficial to mankind. So it is something very, very important, and you have to understand that. And is your idea different? Or is it just like, no, the same run-of-the-mill story? Everyone is doing on, for example, you want to do on, everyone is working on graft versus host disease, for example. Everyone, so do you want to really work on graft versus host disease because you have the expertise, or because is it because someone else is doing, all my friends are doing, I want to work in that area? So not necessarily you can or you want to work in a one particular aspect that everyone is doing. So if that is where your ideas actually drive the show, it is not what everyone is working. You have to write very, very clearly, very concise. You just cannot beat around the bush. No, just like writing the paper the previous speaker mentioned about, now you have to have that clarity in your thought, what exactly you want to convey. Because everyone is busy these days in their life. So and add that, add COVID to that. So extremely stressful times. So you want to write very, very clearly to the point, and demonstrate your technical knowledge, what you have, what you know, and what you can do. And for example, if you have a co-investigator, then that is an icing on the cake where you can complement each other, and you say like, hey, this is what I can do, this is what the co-PI can do, and we have a great idea, and we have the technical expertise, and we have the publication record as well. Because publication record is nothing but a reflection of your productivity. Publish or perish. It is a common saying in science. So your publication, again, you don't want to publish in any journal, It has to be in the core journal. That kind of demonstrates that you have the expertise and you have actually published in that field. Now, for example, I work on saliva, I work on milk. I should be able, I'm using proteomic technology, I should be able to publish in a core journal, like for a journal of proteomics or journal of proteome research. Now, similarly, I want to publish in a core animal journal or a core human journal. Otherwise, you cannot and will not be able to convey the message saying that, hey, I have the ability to do it, and hey, I've already done that. So I've been there, done that, so I can actually do it again. So this is what actually conveys the message to the reviewer. Now, you need to understand what has been done and what you want to do, and where are the gaps. You have to be very, very clear in that. That actually shows the gap in the literature, and that is what you want to do to fill in the gap, and how you want to do it. That's very, very important. And here I mentioned about having a bouncing board. Sometimes when we are writing and when we are studying, sometimes we are so focused, like with blinders like horse. Sometimes we kind of aren't or maybe can't think laterally. So it's always good to have bounce your ideas of someone you trust, who is not going to steal your idea. Remember that. It's not about like, you want to tell your idea to every person who comes across, because ideas are unique. You don't want to tell your idea to every person. You want to tell your idea to a person who you trust and who you think can give you something valuable, advice, which you can actually incorporate into your grant. At the same time, that particular person shouldn't step on your toes, and you realize that hey, you have shared an idea with a person, and that person has already published or got a grant with the similar idea. So to avoid that kind of heartburns, you want to bounce ideas so that you kind of get a feel of what you're thinking. Are you thinking in the right direction, or does it make sense? Because sometimes you don't get that feeling when you're working very, very hard. It's just like writing a paper. You want to write today, come back tomorrow and read it, and you feel like, oh man, what have I written? So and then a lot of iterations happen. So it takes time to build a grant. So so it is important that you have someone to bounce your ideas off. And again, if you're using a completely new technique, you better explain it, because not everyone knows all the techniques, because it is very, very dynamic. Every day newer technology comes in, so I may not be familiar. So to help me understand your grant and how you are approaching the problem and what you will do and what you will get out of it, is something that you have to explain it to a reviewer, for example, if it's me. So in that way, you can actually separate the research question, the research objective, and how do you propose to do it. So you can actually start with a broad question, like, and then focus on the specific question that you want to ask. Again, what doesn't get funding? What doesn't fly? Routine ideas, like I want to identify proteins in milk. Hey, everyone knows it. Or maybe proteins in saliva, like that is pretty routine. Or maybe in blood. Blood, people have been working in blood for a long time. That is the first biological fluid people start looking for physical and chemical changes. We all know that. But then what in blood you want to do, and how do you want to approach it? Is your idea a novel, or it is just run-of-the-mill story? So that is something that you have to pay in mind. And how quickly you can do it. You have to be realistic. You just can't say, like, I want a proposal, I want to write a proposal, or written a proposal for like 5 years. You want to apply to DBT and say, like, I want to apply for 5 years because I've got this great idea. Doesn't help. Because usually you should know that it is for 3 years. So you may as well limit your time for 3 years. And similarly, you want to have that clarity in writing and that budget. Now people usually do not make an effort to understand what kind of consumables the money they need, what kind of equipments the money they need. For example, I just can't write a grant and say, like, I need 1 crore or 1.5 crores. Money doesn't help. No, because you have to justify every penny, everything you put in, you have to justify for every penny. It is, yes, the DBT tells you to do it, but then it is our moral obligation, because we're using taxpayers' money. We have to justify every penny that we get from the funding agency, because inflated budget, kind of, you can easily tell. I want to do consumables, like I need consumables from experiments, I need 25 lakhs a year. It doesn't, and now it doesn't fly with the reviewer. And you should have realistic deliverables, like milestones. At this point in time, in 6 months, what I can deliver. No, you do not want to bite more than you can chew, because once you demonstrate, or you cannot demonstrate that you can actually chew however much you have bitten, then you are actually putting yourself in a pigeonhole, or in a spot where next time when you write a grant, maybe you will finish this grant, but next time when you write a grant, and if you bump into the same reviewer, then, or the committee, they'll say, like, hey, last time you bit more than you could chew. So you could not deliver whatever you promised. So, like, hey, either it's rejected, or we give you a quarter of the money that you asked. And with that quarter of the money, it's like either you take it or leave it. So it is extremely tricky whether you want to take it or leave it, because then when you take it, you have to still deliver whatever you have promised. And you do not take it, then it's a negative thing. Hey, we gave you the money, you didn't take it, so you don't have the money. So that is how it is. And the last is, you need to publish regularly. There should not be a big gap, whether it is a review or a research article, or what have you, a short communication, whatever it is. It actually demonstrate that you have been active researcher. And that actually shows, like, you don't want a big gap in your career. So without publishing, because everyone is going to look at your CV and say, like, hey, what did you do for 3 years without publishing? No, you do not show any kind of productivity in the last 3 years. How do I know, or how do I expect that you will do that in the next 3 years? So to avoid those kind of harsh questions, you may as well want to publish or do something to show your productivity. And if you look at the project per se, you start with a broad topic, then focus on the nitty-gritties, and you show them that what is known and where are the gaps, and how do you propose to investigate, and what will you get out of it. And because you want to show the gaps, and what is the ultimate aim you want to achieve, and how does it help the big picture story? Because as an investigator, you always need to look at the big picture, like what benefit will the man can get out of it. Okay. Now, the second part here is, like, what are the different aspects that a grant has. Now, probably another 5 to 7 minutes, I should be able to run through the different aspects of writing a grant. So it usually starts with the routine aspects, like the project coordinator, it is the principal investigator, name of the institute, who should be the contact person if there are more than one PI, who is the head of the institute. For example, IITs have director, or universities have vice chancellors, and what have you. So and those are the people you have to write their names and contact information, the title of the project, and what is the scope. And this is the big picture. It's about 100 words, where you actually write about the products and processes. What is the scope? Okay, we give you the money, you have developed something, but how the mankind is going to get benefit out of it. So this is something that you have to write very, very carefully, and very, very carefully, with a lot of clarity. You mess it up, I don't want to say that you don't want to judge a book by its cover, but this is the first thing that a person reads. So you want to make sure that you have written it very, very carefully, given a lot of thought and a lot of time into it when you're writing this aspect. It's about 100 words or 150 words. So, and what is your area? Again, as I mentioned, is a basic, translational, clinical, whether you want to work on bacteria, plants, animals, humans, on those kind of aspects. Whether it's against a call for a proposal, or it is a routine, against a call, or against just a routine submission. So duration, again, is it 3 years or 5 years? Usually it is for 3 years. The regular extramural grants, whether it is DBT or DST. Keywords, you want someone to understand what are the key words of your project. It's not like you just want to randomly write some words from your proposal. Exactly what are the 5 or 6 words that you can actually highlight your proposal is all about. Do you need biosafety clearance? Are you working on pathogens? Are you working on animal ethics? Are you working on mice? Or you're working on humans? You need human ethics clearance, or you're working on genetic manipulation, review committee on genetic manipulation. You need to mention that, because you need to get ethics approval to get the funding. Are you working by yourself, or you're working with an industry? And again, if it's a single institute, who is the PI? And if it's a multi-institute, who is the PI again from the other institute? It's something that you have to specify, because whatever information the DBT communicates, it'll communicate with you as well as the other PI from the other institute. So the basic, how does the proposal looks like? You'll have a basic introduction, the hypothesis, the basic idea, and the rationale for it, and what are the key questions that you want to answer, and the aims of the proposal. Usually in DBT or DST, they want 3 aims. Usually should have 3 aims. And now, how does the scenario looks like, whether it is international or national? Has anyone worked in the international arena or in national arena? And what have they done? Is it just to demonstrate that you're not actually reinventing the wheel? Whether you're not doing exactly the same thing over and over and again. So you want to show that this is what people have done, and this is the gap, and this is what you want to actually do to take the field forward, and this is how it's going to benefit the mankind. The relevance of the proposal, yes, you need to have relevance. Again, how is it beneficial, and how does it affects the outcome of the proposed study, whether it is taking the field forward, or in what way it is taking it forward. Yes, preliminary work is very important, and it's something everyone looks forward to, so that you actually have actually set the base for the reviewer to understand that you have the ability to actually do the work. As and then you have 3 objectives, and how do you propose to do it? The work plan. What are the different techniques, different technology, and the stepwise you have to do. And one thing you have to understand here is you need to have, I did not mention, but something that you have to share is your work plan and alternate strategy. If your plan A fails, what's your plan B? How do you want to do it? So every method should have a plan A, which is your main plan, and your alternate strategy if your plan A fails. That's your plan B that you can fall back on. Something so that actually tells you that you're not thinking you're not unidirectional, but you're actually multidimensional, so that you can actually think more than one way to approach a problem and solve it, because they're giving you a lot of money. And you have the references and the timeline. something that is very, very important, because you need to have that milestone. Exactly after how many days you want to show what you have done, and this is what you have to say upfront, so that you can plan your experiments in such a way that, okay, after 6 months you get the result that you promised. So, and you're not playing catch up, because once you're behind, it's usually difficult to catch up in science. For example, now there's a lockdown. The papers don't get signed, the consumables don't come through, and everything gets delayed. This is something very unfortunate. But then you need to plan everything much in advance to help you with your research. The most important thing is budget. One of the most important is budget, and especially in this day and age, budget is probably the most important thing. Now again, it has two different aspects. One is the non-recurring aspect, where you can buy your instruments, and then you have your recurring. It has again different aspects like manpower, consumables, travel, contingency, overhead. Overhead is something that goes to the institution, and a part of your overhead actually comes to your professional development fund that happens in IITs and ICES, all the central institutes. Suppose you get 10 rupees funding. A portion, a certain percentage of the money actually goes to your professional development activity, where you can use that money to go to conferences. You can even pay your article processing fees, or you can do whatever you want. You can buy a pen drive or a computer for your professional development. So these are something different aspects that you have to bear in mind. So in everything you have to justify. You have to justify what how you're going to spend money. And if you have something others that you cannot, for example, you want to buy mice. That is something that's not a consumable item. There's not a travel item. And so you want to mention, you want to buy mice for your experiments in the others column. So or maybe you want to say, I want to have a beehive to collect bee sting. So you mention that in that aspect of your others. So everything is, you have to be very, very clear as to what all you have to mention. So something that it's a little different, and when you're coming from a different institute or from overseas. In India, it's a new place. You have newer responsibilities. You have you come with a lot of enthusiasm and gung-ho, but then your research staff should be as good as you are. Your lab personnel should be as good as you are. They should be able to sprint with you and not just slow walk or sleepwalk. So, and one of the aspects, because of the circumstances, is there is a lag in funding. The moment you get the letter to the fund arriving, sometimes it takes, because of administrative processing, it kind of gets delayed sometimes. So, that is something that you have to factor in when you are planning your research, because you don't expect, like, unlike sometimes you do get the money at the right time, but sometimes there is a lag because of some kind of emergency, just like COVID, where there is a delay in funding, a delay in release of funding. So you have to factor in those things as well. And we all have our personal lives, and especially in a time like COVID, where we have to handle a lot of things, like the personal and the professional things. Everything is online. You have kids, and everything, people working from home. So a lot of things has to be taken care of. And something that, this is the last slide, I believe. So that we all have to understand is, like, what is our ultimate goal? Where do you want to see ourselves in 5 years? And to achieve that, or to see myself in 5 years' time, I need to start early. And you need to find good mentors, so that they can help you. They can help you with your projects, or give you a good piece of advice, so that you can actually do things and stay ahead of the curve. And I cannot emphasize the next bit is networking. You need to network with people, whether it is national, international, go to conferences, meet people. Now, Indians are like, we are very shy people. We're a little scared as well to go up to people and talk. But then you need to be brave and say, like, hey, I'm so-and-so, I'm working on this, I kind of like to work. Are there any opportunities to work, or is there any opportunity to collaborate? This is my expertise and this is yours. I feel something we can do along these lines. So something that we all have to muster up that courage to actually go and talk to people and network and know more people, whether it is national, international, doesn't matter. And you have to believe in yourself that you can do it. If you don't believe, you won't be able to achieve it. And your scientific creativity. No idea is trivial. Trust me, no idea is trivial. It is just what we think, because we are in so much focused on our idea that we think what others might think. A simple example in a class when we don't feel like asking questions because what others might think about us. No, is this idea really stupid or a silly idea? So do not think along those lines, but believe in your ideas, believe in your thought process, and believe that you can achieve it. And invest time on yourself. You want to do, as the previous speaker said, just she showed about a grant writing course. Yes, you need to invest time in yourself, and how you can improve, because we want to be better today than what we were yesterday. So, and you need to find ways to improve so that you are ahead of the curve, because everyone wants to do science, everyone wants to do everything these days. So and how different are you, and how you can stay relevant in this day and age. And as I said early on, you need to have a thick skin, because you need to be patient, and with all the rejections and everything, and persist. Keep on doing the same thing. Keep on trying. There is no shortcut to success. So it's a long journey. But then yes, there is light at the end of the tunnel. But the only way is is chipping away. Keep chipping away. So I'll be happy to take questions, or you can always send an email. I'll be very, very happy. But just mention that it is p-value the webinar, so that it will kind of help me remember, so that I can answer questions. So either I can take questions.